We are taking a closer look at how the pandemic has drastically changed women's careers and dramatically altered their work-life balance. From taking on childcare or family care to what is being dubbed the Great Resignation, many women are feeling overwhelmed and burned out. Ariel Reshef has more.
Raina Boston is a working mom with 3 children under 6. Her husband is a healthcare professional. So, like many women, when the pandemic hit in 2020, she says she knew she had to make a major career sacrifice.
So at the start of the pandemic, we had 2 kids, and my husband has no way of working from home. And so that means it fell to me to do a lot of the picking up.
Raina making the difficult decision to forfeit her new promotion in her HR job, instead taking a demotion, scaling back in order to put family first.
I just knew that I needed to be able to take a step back career-wise.
And she's far from alone. Between February 2020 and April 2020, over 3.6 million women exited the labor force, meaning they were no longer working or looking for work. There are still 872,000 fewer women in the labor force now than in February 2020. Some calling it the she-cession.
Many women had to rethink the role of career in their life, which honestly is sad because for many years now, we've been talking about making sure that we can achieve gender equity, that we can achieve pay equality. Insert a pandemic that basically pressed pause on so much of the progress we've made.
Tara J. Frank is an equity strategist and author of the book, The Waymakers.
Women were taking on a lot of the work at home. They also took on more of the homeschooling responsibilities.
And Tara says the impact even greater for some.
Women in senior roles, women who have children under 10, single mothers obviously have been really impacted by the pandemic, and Black women have been especially impacted by the pandemic.
There are 1.1 million fewer women in jobs since February 2020, but experts say there is hope. 431,000 jobs were added in March of 2022, women making up 62.9% of them. And with more companies now recruiting women and changing work culture, experts tell us women may have more leverage to negotiate and find a balance.
This is a wonderful moment for women to redefine the rules.
Raina says despite the challenges of the past 2 years, there have been silver linings too.
I am in much greater alignment with my values and what I actually want to be doing in my career, as opposed to just mindlessly climbing a career ladder.
So many people can relate to her, and Raina says that she feels lucky to have kept her job, even if she had to take a step back. She says she's now been promoted again, but this time on her own terms. Phil?
Ariel, thank you. We want to talk a little bit more about this. So joining me now is economist at Indeed Hiring Lab, Annelizabeth Konkel. Annelizabeth, thanks so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so we just heard the story of Raina, their working mom in Ariel's report with 3 children under the age of 6. Tell us how the pandemic has affected moms like Raina, not just here, but really all across the globe.
So the pandemic was devastating for all workers, but particularly for women and especially mothers. Women bore a large portion of the job losses, particularly in the acute stage of the pandemic. Like Raina mentioned, when schools are closed and a spouse has a job that they have to go to in person and childcare facilities are closed, there's not a lot of give in other places, and so you have to make that choice. And the statistics point to this. Looking at the prime age women's unemployment rate, i.e. women in that age bracket of 25 to 54. In February of 2020, their unemployment rate was 3%. It shot to 13.7% just 2 months later in April. The good news is that a lot of the labor market statistics are showing that we have seen a robust recovery. Prime age women are returning to the labor force. For example, continuing with the prime age women's unemployment rate, it is now 3.1%. Over the last 2 years, we have seen devastating losses in the labor market, but fortunately, a very quick recovery for women. I will say that we are not back at where we were pre-pandemic, but we are getting closer and closer to it. Just a little bit more progress needed on that front.
And it's been particularly hard for women of color. Tell us why.
So for women of color, some are disproportionately represented in lower wage occupations. And, we have the gender pay gap, unfortunately. That was persistent before the pandemic. It continues now. When we look at women overall in 2020, full-time working women earned 83 cents on the dollar compared to men. But there are substantial disparities for women of color. Black women earn 64 cents on the dollar compared to white men. For Hispanic women, even worse, 57 cents on the dollar compared to white men. And so the idea that we are returning to, that we just need to return to the labor market of February 2020 is not the complete answer. We want those headline statistics to return to some of those numbers, but we also need to fix a variety of things under the hood, such as the gender pay gap, and be cognizant of things like the long-term wealth effects of, maybe not getting that raise, getting that promotion. That has a cumulative effect, and we want women to be able to accumulate wealth just as much as men.
We heard a little bit of a bright side in Ariel's report, and you mentioned it as well. We can put the statistic up. There were 431,000 jobs added in March of 2022, and women make up 62.9% of them. So what do you think the next few years look like with women in the workforce, especially as the future of the pandemic for all of us really remains uncertain?
So the pandemic really highlighted that childcare is an issue. It was an issue before the pandemic, but it was one that wasn't getting a ton of focus. And the pandemic put that front and center. Some research I have done doing some survey work at Indeed found that childcare is a key factor why some unemployed women just simply aren't urgently job searching. 35% of prime age women cited childcare as a reason, compared to just 18% of their male counterparts. And so I think that childcare and flexibility are going to be continue in the labor market discussion in the next few years, because the pandemic has shown us that those labor market inequalities, it really shone a spotlight on them. And I'm hopeful that, hopefully we can make improvement on these issues as well.
I think we all like the word hopefully. Annelizabeth Konkel, thanks so much. Appreciate your time.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.